Hello, and thank you for purchasing the Alternative Carousel for Collections Shopify section by qwiqode. In this video, I'll be showing you how to use it. With this section, you can add multiple collections in a form of a carousel along with custom text that includes a title, text block, and a button. To get started, let's go to the collection blocks on the left sidebar. When we click on it, we see multiple options, and the first one is to choose a collection. So from here, you can add a collection from your store, and then we have the image source, and by default, it will show up the image from the collection, but you can also select a custom image. For example, if I click in here, I can select an image using the custom image field. So I can add something like this. Next, we have the title source, and by default is the collection one, but you can also select it to be custom and add in here any custom label for that collection. Now I'm gonna add some more collections and speed up the process. Okay, now that I added the content, let's go to the section settings to add more content and the styling settings. Once we go to the section settings, we see multiple options, and the first one is the section class. This field is for advanced users, and you want to control the styling of multiple sections at the same time, you can add that class in here. Okay, so for example, I have some custom CSS, and I have a class called dark border, and with this, I'm adding a border to all sections of 10 pixels with a solid black. Okay, so if I add this same class name to this field without that dot, like this, you see that we're applying that styling from that class. Okay, so this is useful in case you have multiple sections. Maybe you have another one like this. Okay, so if you have multiple sections with that same class, that styling from the custom CSS will be applied using that class name. But for now, I don't need it because I want to use the styling that comes on the section settings. So I'll remove this class and delete this duplicated section. Okay, next we have the section title. So in here we can add something like this. Okay, and the section text, I have something on my clipboard, so I'm gonna paste it. Okay, these two fields are rich text, so that means that you can change the wrapping of them. For example, the section title by default is an H2, but you can select it to be H1, H3, or any other of this list. The same with this one. Right now it's paragraph, but you can change the wrapping. You can also apply specific styling for some words or the whole paragraph. For example, I can make this italic like this, or only a word, and maybe I have it like that. Okay, so you can do that using these rich text options. But for now, I don't need it, so I'm gonna remove it and keep it like this. Next, we have the section button label. Right now, it says learn more. Maybe we can do something like buy now. And on the section button URL, link it to the collection like this. Next, we have an option for opening that button link on a new tab. So when this is enabled and a user clicks on it, this will open on a new tab like this. Okay, so you can control that with this option. But in this case, I want the users to go straight away without leaving the page, so I'm gonna keep it disabled. Okay, next we have the carousel settings, and the first option is the slides to show. So by default it's 4, but you can select it to be 3, 2, and up to 6. Okay, right now we don't see 6 because we only have 5 blocks, but you can add multiple blocks. Let's say we have 7 blocks like this. You can navigate through all those blocks and control how many you want to show using that slides to show field. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it as 4, and I can remove this because I don't need these other 2. Next, we have the slides to show on mobile. By default is 1, but you can select it to be 2, like that. But for now, I'm gonna keep it at 1. Let's go back. Next, we have the autoplay carousel slides, and when this is enabled, these slides will start autoplaying like this. Okay, and you can select the carousel speed. By default is every 4 seconds, but you can select it to be 2 or 1, or expand this to be very slow, 7 seconds up to 15 seconds. Okay, but for now, maybe I'm gonna keep it as 3. Next, we have the space between slides. And with this, we control this distance over here. Okay, so right now it's 10 pixels, but you can select it to be 0 or up to 60 pixels like this. But for now, I'm gonna keep it around 6 like this. And then you have the same option for mobile, so maybe I'm gonna keep it also at 6. Okay, and actually I think I'm gonna disable this because I want the users to navigate using the arrows only. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it disabled. Okay, next we have the carousel arrow styling, and the first option is the line color. So maybe we can do something like this, white line, and the background color to be a highlight color like this. So you can control these colors using these fields. Next, we have the arrows alignment, and by default is on the left, but you can also select it to be on the right or below the title right here. So you have that option. Next, we have options for using custom arrows, and this is in case you have your own custom icons. You can add them using these fields. For example, if you have a next arrow like this, this, you can add it here and it will show up on the next arrow. I don't have a previous arrow, so I'm going to remove this and keep the default ones. Next, we have the section styling, and the first option is the section background color. So in here we can add a background color like this. Next, we have the section width, and by default it's regular. So that means when using regular, that is not going to expand all the way because it's not full width. But if you select full width, you'll see that the section expands all the way like that. Next, we have the content max width, and with this we control how much we want to expand this content over here. So right now it's up to 1280, this right here, but if you increment this and we go to full screen, you'll see that we expanded the area. The same if we make it smaller like this, you see that the section width stays right here, okay? But this overflows because that's part of the effect of this section. Okay, let's go back. Okay, but for this example, I'm gonna keep it at 1280 like this. Next, we have the section top and bottom margin, and this is the outside distance between the sections. So right now it says 20 pixels. So if you increment this, you'll make more room at the top and the same at the bottom like this. So you add that space using these fields. Next, we have the section top, bottom, and horizontal padding. And while the margin is the outside distance, the padding is the inside distance. Okay, so right now it's 20 pixels. So the content is 20 pixels from the top of the section. Okay, but if you increment this, you can make more room inside the section. The same at the bottom, and also horizontal, it will be this distance over here. So you can control it using these fields. But maybe for now, I'm gonna keep it at 20 and maybe these two to be 30, like this. Next, we have the section styling for mobile. We have the same, the top and bottom margin, top, bottom, and horizontal padding. Next, we have the section header styling, which is this right here. And the first option is the text alignment. So right now it's left, but you can also select it to be at the center or to be right, like this. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it on the left. Next, we have the section header top, bottom, left, and right padding. So if you want to make more room in here at the top, you use this field and you're creating that space over here. The same if you add it on the left or on the right. Okay, so we're adding space inside this area, but maybe this is too much for now, so I'm gonna keep it at 10 and 10. And actually on the top, maybe 20. So if I keep it 0, this will align with this. So I think I'm gonna keep it like that. Next, we have the section header styling for mobile. So it's the same settings. Section header alignment, left, center, or right, top, bottom, left, and right paddings. Next, we have the styling for the text elements, and the first one is the section title, and from here you can choose a color for the title. So maybe we can do something like this. Okay, and we can use a custom font by clicking in here and selecting a font from this list. So maybe we can do something like that. So you can choose a custom font from this list, or if you're loading a custom font on your theme, you can add the family name in here. For example, if you're loading a Helvetica, you will put here that custom name, okay? And this will grab this font. But for now, I'm gonna keep it blank because I want to use this font over here. Next, we have the font weight. And with this, we control how thin or bold the font looks. For example, you can make it bold like this, or thin, or just keep it default. So I'm gonna keep it like that. Next, we have the margin top and margin bottom for the title. So right now it's 0, but if you increment this, it'll make it more room outside the title. You can do the same at the bottom. So maybe we can do something like this. Okay. Next, we have the title font size, line height, and letter spacing. And right now, all of these are 0. So that means that this size is being determined by the theme. So it's the theme's default. But if you want to change it, you can use this field to control it, like that. Next, we have the line height, and this is the vertical distance between the characters. For example, right now it's 0, so it's the default from your theme. But if I adjust this, you see that I can control this distance over here. So if I put it like this, we have a lot of room between them. Or if I make it like this, the characters will be closer. But for now, I'm gonna keep it 0 because I want to use my theme's default for the line height. Next, we have the letter spacing. And while the line height is the vertical distance, the letter spacing is the horizontal distance. So right now it's 0, so it's the default. But if you increment this, you'll see that we're making more room between these characters. Okay, so if you want to add a lot of space, you can do it like this. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna keep it 0 because I really like the default. Next, we have the title styling for mobile. So we have the same. We have the margin top, margin bottom, font size, line height, and letter spacing. Next, we have the section text area styling. And from here, we can choose a color, maybe like a gray, like this, and use a custom font, maybe something like this. Okay, and on margin top, we can increment this to make more room. Okay. And maybe on font size, we can make it bigger like this. And maybe on line height, my default is too much. So maybe I can make it closer like this. Okay, next we have the same for mobile, margin top, margin bottom, font size, line height, and letter spacing. Next we have the section button styling, so we have the option for custom fonts. So maybe we can select one from this list. Okay, and then we have the same, the custom family name and the font weight. Next we have the button border width. So by default is 0, but you can add some width in here. Okay, and maybe right now we won't see it because the border color is the same. Okay, but we'll get to those colors in a minute. Next we have the border radius for the button. So with this, you can control the corners of the button. Okay, so if you want to create that oval shape, you can adjust this field. Next, we have the button top margin. So with this, you can control that distance. Next, we have the button horizontal and vertical padding. So with this, you can control the distance between the text and the outside of the button. Okay, so maybe if we increment this, we'll make the button taller because we're adding more distance over here. But for now, maybe I'm gonna keep it around 15 like this. Next we had the font size, so you can control it using this field. Next we had the same settings for mobile. We have the top margin, the font size, and the letter spacing. And then we have the button colors. And the first one is the background color, so maybe we can do something like this. And the text color, this color, border color, is the outside of the button. But this color is only available if you have a border width on this field, because if you have it at 0, you won't see it. But in this case, I'm gonna keep it at 4 pixels so I can control that border color. But actually the border color, I can make it a little darker than the original, like this. Okay, so you can create that effect. Then we have the button hover colors, and these colors are when a user puts the mouse over the button, these colors will be enabled. So maybe on hover, we can have the button to be this blue and maybe the border to be the same color like that, and the text color to be white, so this works for me. Next we have the image sizes settings, and the first option is the image dimensions. So right now by default they're square, but you can select it to be original. These are the original sizes of those images. Okay, but in case you want to keep them all the same, you can select a size from here. So you can select it to be landscape, portrait, square, horizontal, or vertical. I really like this because you can see more of the product, so I'm gonna keep it like that. Next we have the image width, and by default it's 100% of this block. But if you want to make it smaller, you can adjust these fields right here. But for now, I'm gonna keep it at 100. Next we have the image border radius, and with this we control the corners, so you can create this effect using this field. But maybe that's too much for me. I'm gonna keep it around 10. Like this. Next we have the block styling, and the first option is the display slide titles. So right now it's only on active, so this is the only one that we see, but if we select all, we'll see that name on all of them. But for now, I'm gonna keep it on active only. Next we have the block's text alignment. By default is left, but you can select it to be center or to be right. Next you have the same for mobile, left, center, or right. Next you have the blocks margin top, and this is the blocks area. So right now it's 0, but if you increment this, you can make more room up here. So maybe you can do something like that. But for now, I'm gonna keep it 0. Next you have the margin top on mobile, okay? And down here we have the margin bottom. So on margin bottom, you can adjust this to make more room down here, okay? But maybe I'm gonna keep it like this for now. And then you have the same option for mobile. Next we have the block title styling, and the first option is to show or hide the slide title. So when this is enabled, you can see it. You can also hide it using this field. Okay, but for now I really like it like this, so I'm gonna keep it. Okay, and next we have an option for changing the HTML element the same way we did with the rich text. So you can choose one from here. We can do it with this one, but this title comes from either the collection or the custom title. We cannot control it, so we can use this field to change that wrapping. So right now it's H3, so you can select it to be H4, okay, H5, H6, or H1. But for now, I'm gonna keep it as H3. Then we have the block title color, so maybe we can do something like this, and then use a custom font. Maybe we can add the same as the other title, like that. Maybe on font size, we can make it bigger like this. Okay, and down here we have the block title minimum height. And this is useful in case you have multiple titles. Let's say we have this to show all of them, and one of them is a very long title. Let's say jackets is jackets for the summer, something like that. Okay, so you see that this one is taller than the other ones. So with this field, you can control it so all of these are the same height and the buttons can align like this. But maybe 100 is too much, so maybe I'm gonna keep it around here like that. So that's useful in case you want to align all these buttons like that. But for now, I'm gonna keep it at 0, because at 0 will be automatically, so this doesn't bother me, so I'm fine with this. Okay, but you have that option. Okay, next we had the top and bottom margin, so you can adjust this, okay, like this, so you can adjust that distance. Next we had the font size, the line height, and the letter spacing. And down here we had the same options for mobile, the minimum height, margin top, margin bottom, font size, line height, and letter spacing. Next we had the button styling, and this is for this button over here. And the first option is to show or to hide the button. So if you keep it disabled, it will look like this. Okay, but for now, I really like the button, so I'm gonna keep it. Next, you had the button label. So instead of shop now, you can do buy now or learn more like this. Next, you have an option for opening that in a new tab, and you can also use a custom font. So maybe for this one, we can do something like that. And then you have the max width, the border width, and the border radius. Maybe on border width, I'm gonna keep it at 0, but on border radius, I want to create this oval shape, so I'm gonna adjust this. Next, you have the top and bottom margin, so you can control this distance over here. But remember that all these elements have a top and bottom margin. So that means that if you have here the top margin to be 0, but you still see some gap, that gap might be coming from the title. Maybe the title has a margin bottom. Okay, so you have those options separately. But for now, I'm gonna keep it around 20 like this. Next, you have the bottom margin. Right now, I'm gonna keep it 0 because that's fine. And then we have the horizontal padding. You have here the inside distance, okay, and the vertical distance. So you can control it using these two fields. Okay, next you have the font size. So from here, we can make it bigger or smaller like this, and the letter spacing. And down here we have the same options for mobile. We have the top and bottom margin, the font size, and the letter spacing. Next we have the button styling for mobile. So we have the top and bottom margin, font size, and letter spacing. And at the end we have the button colors. So we can change these colors as well. So maybe we can do something similar to this other button. Border color, we don't see it because we kept it at 0, so that's fine. And maybe on hover, instead of blue, we can keep it like this. Okay, so let's see how it looks on full screen. I really like how it looks, so I'm gonna save it, and that's it. Thank you again. If you have any questions or if you run into any issues, please don't hesitate to contact us via the support page on our website. Thank you and take care.